Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our sustainability webinar series. We're so happy to have you here with us for the Saturday session. I'm Ashley, the City of Bowie Sustainability Planner, and I will be moderating today's session. As such, feel free to use the Q&A box. Don't hesitate to ask questions as we go. You don't have to wait till the end, but at the end, I will ask our presenter whatever questions are left, and we'll have plenty of time for a discussion. Also, I will be sending a follow-up email to everyone with relevant links to things discussed today and a link to the presentation. So now I'd like to introduce Tiffany Wright, our watershed manager, my coworker, and many times a mentor. In 2009, Tiffany became the first watershed manager for the city of Bowie after an 8-year stint at the Center for Watershed Protection, a nonprofit based in Ellicott City. She manages the city's annual stream cleanup and the new Plant One Tree on Us program, which encourages residents to plant native trees in their yards. Tiffany has a master's degree in marine science from Coastal Carolina University, where her interest in protecting local streams was born. When not in the office, she's a coordinator for a volunteer rescue dog transport that goes from South Carolina up to the Northeast twice a month. And they can always use additional volunteers. So if you're interested, her contact information will be in the email, and you can always reach out to her if you're interested in that as well. All right, Tiffany, let's learn about watersheds. Over to you.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So yes, welcome to your watershed. I anticipate this will be the most interesting welcome to your watershed webinar you've attended. Definitely, like Ashley said, hit up the Q&A with any questions, and if anything is urgent, Ashley, just, holler. So I guess like the first thing we're going to do is learn these, go over what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to learn the answers to what is a watershed? Do I live in a watershed? And if I do, which one? Why should I care about my watershed? And if I convince you that you should, what can you do to protect your watershed? So the first question, what is a watershed? So I'll adjust your thinking cap and let's look at the multiple choice answers. A small building that holds water. No clue, that's why we're here after all, and I have no problem if you say B. Or all of the land that drains to a particular body of water. So if you selected C, congratulations. Yes, it is all of the land that drains to a particular body of water. So that body of water could be a stream that, is in your backyard. It could be a lake or a river. It could be a bay or an ocean. And this is how kind of a watershed is laid out. So we've got rain, or in some areas, snowpack that melts. And that's kind of like drains into some streams, and the streams run through the watershed and, flows through farmland, past homes and along roads. Maybe there are dams or factories, wastewater treatment plant, things like that. And then the water will go into the ocean or the bay or a river. So we see what sorts of things we have in watersheds. So then my question would be, who lives in one? And I'm hoping that everyone is thinking, why I live in a watershed, Tiffany. If you thought that, you are correct. We are in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, to be specific. So if you look at this map here, the Bay watershed stretches across 6 states and the District of Columbia. It's quite a large amount of land that drains to the Chesapeake Bay, and then of course that flows into the Atlantic Ocean. So, how big is 64,000 square miles? Because I have a hard time sometimes picturing that. So each of these states that you see on the left, sort of in the yellowish color, each of those states is bigger than the Chesapeake Bay watershed, but all of the other ones are not. And in fact, if you look in the Northeast there, if you add up the 9 states that are the smallest, which includes Maryland and Hawaii, and then the Northeast, those altogether are still smaller than the Bay watershed. And this, I think, was very fascinating to me. Of the roughly 200 countries across the world, only 87 are larger than the Bay watershed. So it's really quite a significant amount of land. And it's, important what we do with it. So in that 64,000 square miles, we've got 18 million people, which is more people that live in any state in the country except these four: California, Texas, Florida, and New York. It's a lot of people. The estimated economic value of the Chesapeake Bay and its watershed is $1 trillion, which is more than any single state except those four. And yeah, if you see on this map, if you're in New York, you could throw a cigarette butt out the window, which I hope you don't do, and it can end up in the Chesapeake Bay. And we are situated right down here in the bay, just east of Washington. And so let's look at Maryland in a little bit more detail right here. So I hope the Patuxent looks familiar to some of you. That is where we are. So we are in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We are also in the Patuxent watershed. If you remember, I mentioned it could be any body of water. So there's the Patuxent, there's the Potomac. Up near Baltimore, you've got the Patapsco, and there are a number of other, large basins in Maryland. So I love this graphic, and not just because it's mine. It really helps, I think, see where water goes. So the dark blue here is Bowie, and those are the surface streams in the city. So there are certainly other streams that are, maybe underground. For example, near Bel Air Meadows, we had to pipe the stream a number of years ago because of some flooding issues. So, but these are the ones, if you walk up to it and see it, these are the streams that you see here in blue. And all of these other lighter colored streams across the state are, streams, rivers. And it's not all of the streams and, surface water, let's say. It's not all of the surface water in the state, but it's the ones that are the most impaired. So the ones that are like the dirtiest or, most polluted, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I think it's pretty easy to see if you're in Bowie, how you are connected to the Chesapeake Bay. So water comes from the city and it flows all the way down here. Hopefully you can see me tracing the Patuxent River and comes all the way down to Calvert County and out into the Chesapeake Bay. And that is a long way to go. And everything we do here, the water will end up in the bay. So here, Bowie, there are a number of, oh no, I'm using the word subwatersheds. Well, okay. So I talked to you about any body of water. So there are watersheds like the Chesapeake Bay, the Patuxent River, and each of those watersheds is made up of smaller watersheds, or we call them subwatersheds. So for example, these are the subwatersheds to the Chesapeake Bay and to the Patuxent River in Bowie. So for example, Horsepen Branch, the big purple one at the top, if you drive Racetrack Road and you pass you're heading north and you pass the racetrack, there's the Horsehead Bridge. They're really nice bridges they redid a number of years ago. That is Horsepen Branch. So wave and don't throw anything out the window when you are driving up Racetrack Road or any other road. So just some overarching facts about watersheds is that we've talked about the different sizes. You could have Overbrook Branch, which I don't know if anyone saw on the last slide, but is really just the Overbrook neighborhood. And you can have, Horsepen Branch, Chesapeake Bay. And I mentioned these can be broken down into smaller areas called subwatersheds, and there are a number of those. I hope we've established that everyone lives in a watershed. If we didn't before, hopefully we have now. And water moves above and across and below the land that makes up the watershed. So the land, well, what's on the land? And I guess the short answer is development, right? So we need places to live, and we need wastewater treatment plant, we need crops, we need all sorts of things that require, infrastructure, buildings, roads, things like that. And this is just a fancy word for, all of the rain that runs off into our streets, which we'll talk about in a second. There are factories, all kinds of things here, and all of these things impact the health of the water and watershed and the Chesapeake Bay. So I mentioned the infrastructure that we need, and I don't know if anyone will recognize this, but we need Route 50 and we need 301. And, some people would argue that we need Target. We certainly need apartment complexes. It's a Longleaf neighborhood. People that live there need that, car dealerships, all of these things that we need that kind of put like hard surfaces on the land, and that kind of impacts what happens with rain. Now, what do I mean by that? And why does that even matter? So, all right, so we look at like two sources of water in any sort of urban or suburban area. So there's like water inside the house and water outside the house. And the water inside the house flows into pipes, and it goes to the wastewater treatment plant, which is located up at Public Works off Annapolis Road. And then there's the water outside the house, which is the rain and the snow melt we talked about before. And that all of that rain that runs off into streets is collected in a series of storm drains, which I'm sure you've all seen on your roads. And those go into pipes that go directly to streams. So street surface runoff, and we'll talk what exactly runoff is in a second, but street surface runoff goes into these underground storm drains and empty into streams, which flow into rivers, and you know where we're going with that. So the question here is, what does runoff look like? Like, what is it? And this is a great video from a town in Massachusetts, I believe, that'll kind of give you a really good introduction to this. So it's just about a minute and a half. So let's take a look at this.
When raindrops fall from the sky, trees and plants help break their fall. In the woods, rain is gently guided to the ground below, where plant roots and microorganisms drink it in. Here, impurities in the rain are filtered out. Rainwater, not absorbed by the plants, continues to seep into the ground, restoring groundwater and filling lakes, ponds, and streams. The Cape's groundwater, the same water we drink, depends on rain and snowmelt for its replenishment. Roofs, driveways, roadways, and parking lots are not so welcoming. The rain washes these hardened surfaces of dirt particles from air pollution, fertilizers, oil and gas from cars, litter, and pet waste. And with no place to soak in, the rainwater gathers in puddles or speeds down the road, taking the pollution with it. Flowing from our streets into our coastal waterways, this is where rainwater becomes stormwater. But water is a resource we can't afford to waste. Understanding this, we can use new ways to handle stormwater, and where we can, let the raindrops soak in where they fall.
So thank you to these folks for making what I think is really a pretty great video. So let's talk about stormwater. And we now know that stormwater is all the rain that doesn't soak into the ground. At least I hope we know that. So we don't need to see that again, although it was good. So this is stormwater. So we have all the rain that doesn't infiltrate the ground, or it's not, intercepted by plants. This water picks up a lot of different pollutants, fancy word for trash, or pet waste, or cigarette butts. As I mentioned before, it's not treated at the wastewater plant. A number of folks say, well, surely, and I said this for, forever, surely the water that comes off of the roads has to be cleaned up before it goes into the bay, but it's frequently not. And because of this, the single greatest threat to surface waters, streams in really in the state, certainly the country, and frankly, probably around the world, is this stormwater pollution. So Ashley mentioned that I used to work at a place called the Center for Watershed Protection, and that building is circled right there in yellow. And I don't know if anyone recognizes this, but this is Ellicott City. And this was after the second pretty biblical flood. I mean, it was really bad. They had one in 2016 and one in 2018 that just wreaked havoc and unfortunately killed a couple folks. And this is what happens when stormwater just gets to be too much. This is in Saddlebrook, in Bowie, right off the Racetrack Road. And there's so much water coming through here that can't soak into the ground that it kind of like, it just causes the banks of the streams to just wash away, which causes a lot of instability and potentially problems with, things falling, trees or other things falling into a stream. And then certainly we've all heard about beaches being closed after, really big storms. And that's, from bacteria levels, which come from, pet waste or wild animal waste. And it can even come from, problems with the sanitary sewer system. But all of these things wreak, pretty big havoc on streams. And so some of the more common sources of pollution that we see in a suburban area like Bowie, mentioned in the video, pesticides and fertilizers. And this link, and I'll have Ashley send it out to everyone as well, but the link at the bottom talks about a relatively new law in Maryland that dictates the amount and timing of fertilizers that can be applied. So you'll definitely want to take a look at that. If you work with a company, they have to be certified. So you can just leave it to them and maybe just check behind them a little bit. Home maintenance of vehicles. So this could be car washing, or it could be car repairs that, might put oil on the ground or wash, heavy metals from the tires. And then another thing that gets into storm drains is, well, really anything that people dump there. So this was an unfortunate incident in a neighborhood that I won't mention, where someone reported that they saw this white water in the stream, and that's not normal. And excuse me, I went out to take a look and come to find out there was some paint that was, made its way into the storm drain on the road. And we talked about how it's not treated. And this is pretty clear evidence that it just flows right on in there. And then aren't these very cute dogs? Another common source of pollution is pet waste. So a lot of people don't think that they need to pick up dog poop. I'm just going to say it. This is Cody, my dog, on the left, and then my best friend's dog, Sophie, or as I call her, my niece, on the right. But if we take our dogs out and we don't take a bag to pick up their pet waste, it stays there. And we've already talked about where it goes. If it gets, rained on, it just runs right on down into the street and in a stream. So I have a feeling that you're thinking, how can I help? Tiffany, what can I do to protect my watersheds, the Patuxent, the Horsepen Branch, Millstream Branch, and certainly the Bay? And so in your yard, there are a few options. You could have a rain barrel here on the left. And this is a local woman who is a way better painter than I, and painted the Maryland flag on her rain barrel that the Lions Club sells, the Bowie Lions Club sells. So that's an option. You can collect that water and you can put it on your plants. It's probably better for your plants because it's not treated. There's no, chlorine in it. And then another option is over here on the right. This is a rain garden. And I know this is like a lot of information, so definitely ask questions, and I'll have my number at the end if you want to call me with any questions. But this is just sort of an area that's kind of like a bowl where the water can be directed from your yard into it, and it'll sink into the ground, which, we saw in the video about we need to let the water soak into the ground where it is. And then you can leave your grass on the lawn. So when you cut your grass, leave it leave it there, or you could use a mulching mower, which is like a totally fancy thing for which the city offers rebates. So you do have to be within the incorporated limits of the city. But some of the benefits of a mulching mower, it chops up the grass and it puts it right back down. And it's, there it says free natural fertilizer. So it helps, retain moisture so your yard doesn't dry out in the summer. You can read and follow all the directions on your yard chemicals. Or again, if you have a service, maybe ask them one day. You can keep your grass mowed kind of high. So no more than about a third of the grass blade each time you mow, and that'll help shade out unwanted weeds. Some people don't care about weeds, so I choose to say unwanted. So then if we shift from the yard, we've got, we mentioned car washing and car maintenance. And if you can, take your car to a professional, to a commercial car wash rather. They recycle all of their water, and you don't have to, worry about putting suds and things into the streams. The same with oil changes. People do that inside and they recycle the oil, and it's certainly much better that way. I am not one that will ever change my own oil, so I am more than happy to take this Chesapeake Bay saving option. And those cute dogs. So when you take your dog for a walk, or even when they're out in your yard, pick up. So, there you'll see these on here on the left, this pet waste pickup station. You'll see a lot of those around in some of our parks, in some of the neighborhoods with like homeowner associations where they have open space. They frequently have them. It is the law in Bowie, and it's just nice, to be neighborly. Stepping in it is not fun. I expect a lot of us have it one time or another. And look, if you bring bag and you scoop every poop and you take it home and put it in the trash, your dog will give you kudos. Good human. Lastly, there are a lot of opportunities. I should not say that. There are a few opportunities to volunteer with us. So in the spring and the summer and in the fall, we have a couple of activities. So Ashley runs a Weed Warrior program. So we talked about in your yard, if you do, if you have, plants, make sure that they're not invasive, make sure they're native. You don't have to water them a lot or anything. And English ivy will kill a tree. And so what we do is we work to remove English ivy from the trees. Right now we're working in White Marsh Park. And then I run a stream cleanup. So we didn't do it this year or last year because of COVID, but I hope we'll be doing it again in April of next year. And I may try to do one in October if, fingers crossed, things keep getting better. And there are always committees, council meetings, and community events. So the city has 2 environmental committees that you could join. Ashley runs one of them, and our boss, Joe Minor, the planning director, runs the other one. And I can put you in touch with them if you're interested in that. Speak up at council meetings. It would make my heart so happy to see somebody get up and say, I would like to discuss stormwater with my fellow Bowieites. And I may never see that, but it's certainly an option. Talk about anything at a council meeting. And then, community events, Bowie Fest, or some of the things that we haven't been able to do, but we certainly will again. And I guess the most important thing for me is if you insist on washing your car at home because you have a super nice car and you just want to do that, or you really can't deal with grass clippings and you have to put them in the bag and put them on the street, just keep an eye out. So if you see anything like on the left here, there's mud in the street. On the right, we shouldn't have soap suds running down a street into a storm drain. If you see anything strange in a stream, in a storm drain, anywhere that's surface water, call our public works number. That's I wrote the wrong number, 809-2344, 809-2344. I will fix that. And that's a 24-hour a day number. And I just, if I can impress upon you nothing else. Just make sure that you kind of keep an eye out and you let us know if there's something going on out there. And thank you so much. So we are done the spiel. So please feel free to follow us on Twitter at @green_Bowie. Ashley does a great job of managing that account for us. This is my email address and phone number, and I could talk about this all day long. I will not do that to you. But please, get in touch anytime. So back to Ashley.
Thanks, Tiffany. The first question we got is a question that we get all the time, and there's a very simple answer to it, and Tiffany will explain more. But it's the age-old Tiffany. Why doesn't Bowie participate in PG County rain check rebate program that offers, all the things it offers, when it seems like every other town participates? But I'll let you explain.
Yes, so every other town or city in Prince George's County does participate. And Annapolis has their own, and Montgomery County and Rockville have their own. The thing is that is funded by what some people like to call the rain tax. I don't like to call it that. It's really a watershed protection fee that's charged to every property in the county, except if your property is in the city limits. And that's because we have a separate, so it's mandated by the state and based on the stormwater permit, so we all have like a permit, we have to do certain things. And the city does not participate with the county on its stormwater permit. So any money that they collect from residents is just in the county. Bowie residents don't pay into that. Hope that was clear. And I will say that, we're looking into that as an option here. It's a little difficult because we don't have a fee. We don't have a dedicated source of funding. But it's certainly something that I would like to see. So
Yeah, definitely. We get asked that all the time, and you said it perfectly. You're not taxed on it, so your tax dollars don't fund it, so you can't participate. And I didn't realize it was every actual other town in the county. I thought there was one or two that didn't, but that's probably seems even worse to someone who doesn't know and sees that, and they're like, why the heck are we not participating? But yeah, it's one thing, you're not taxed in the same way, and so that's the main reason. Do we have any other questions? There are no other questions in the chat or in the Q&A box, but Tiffany, you did receive a very nice compliment on your tone, and that, you have presented really well, and it was very easy to follow. So
good. Well, thank you.
It looked like someone raised their hand or something, but I don't have any
I saw that
questions in the Q&A.
Feel free to send us a message.
What sub-watershed is Bowie Town Center a part of? That's a good question.
That is Green Branch. And let me see. I wonder if I can go back. It might be too much for me to go back to the map. But yeah, so we
can send the map.
Green Branch. Yes, there you go. Yeah. So Green Branch. So it flows into the stream behind the Bay Sox Stadium. And you know what? If you send me your address, I would love to make you like a watershed map of your very own. I will show you all the streams around you and where they go. I love it. I do.
We live on Spiral Lane and walk around Starlight. What about the drainage area there?
Okay, so that's an interesting situation. So if you are ever on Spangler Lane, you know that there used to be a large forested parcel there, and it is no longer. I mentioned the stormwater permit that we have with the state, and we have to do certain things to meet the requirements of that permit. And one of those is there was this, what I'm going to call a hole in the ground. It was supposed to be, I guess, like Levitt was ahead of his time. And so he put these sort of big holes in the ground to hold water for a little while and slowly release it back in the 60s. And so we went in there and what we call retrofits. We retrofitted it and we made it, larger and just kind of cleaned it out and put some native plants and things in there. So if you're in that neighborhood, your stormwater probably does get treated. It's something like, salt or sediment or some of those things like that, they probably are dissolved in the water. So it's a little bit, once you dissolve salt water, you're not going to get it out. So it's not perfect, but it's definitely better there than, like than in Old Town where there's nothing. Hopefully that answers that, but feel free to ask me to clarify.
And then another question, another thing we do to help our watershed is pick up trash on our walks. That's great. Is there a way that the city can work to make it easier for residents to use trash cans so that the vultures don't break the bags and leave so much trash in our neighborhoods?
Don't even. Yes, I
That's
wish.
another one.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say a lot. I know of a few municipalities that require trash cans. Why Bowie doesn't, honestly, I cannot tell you. It
Yeah.
really makes no sense to me. But I agree. So we have had a conversation in this office about, we gave everybody these large rolling recycle bins a few years back. Why can't we do that with trash cans? And I don't know, that conversation is like way above my pay grade and not in my department. So I so appreciate that comment. And I wish that I could explain to you why we don't make people put trash in cans. I mean, it's just so much, like, it's just so much nicer for the people picking it up. Like, I don't want them to have to, I digress.
Yeah, trash bags being put out on the curb is actually a topic that we get a lot as well because it causes lots of issues.
Yeah.
So if you are someone who does that, it's okay. It's not to shame you, but please consider purchasing a trash can with a lid because it helps in every aspect. Like it helps in multiple different ways that we could do separate webinars on each, way it helps. So a simple thing that you can do to help is definitely to get a trash can.
Yeah.
And
they
maybe
have some really cheap, I'm sorry, Ashley, but I bought one at Big Lots before. I mean, they're not like the best thing and maybe they don't last forever, but it was, all I kind of could afford when I bought one maybe 10 years ago. So they're not cheap.
Yeah, and then someone commented, same person commented in our neighborhood, the HOA won't allow trash cans in front of the house, even if hidden. And that is the rule. Isn't that citywide? It's the rule regardless of HOA.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be in front of your house. There have been discussions about that as well with the smaller houses. They're off Racetrack, the townhomes that are connected. Been discussions about that because it's such a long walk and creates a lot of issues. But yeah, the rule is that they aren't to be in the front, and that's again above our out of our department kind of.
Yeah.
So someone says the water in drainage is dirty. Geese and now herons are trying it out. Can't something be done to make it more attractive to them?
So I guess I'm wondering which water you're talking about. I will say right here at City Hall where I am right now, there's a big pond behind Centennial Pond, I guess it's called now. And then there's a smaller one. If ever you visit the police department, and I won't ask why, you'll see right across from the police department is like a super brown muddy kind of pond, and it looks kind of gross, but it's totally natural. So it's like the underlying soils, and they are just clay, and that pond has been orange and brown for as long as I've worked here. Probably will continue to be, but it's interesting that you bring up the wildlife. I mean, there are certain things that we can't control from a pollution standpoint. Like we can't go pick up after deer, or like there's so many things we can't control that for me it makes it even more important to control the things we can. So I can pick up after my dog, and that will help have one little bit of a bacteria that won't get in the stream, because it's inevitable. There are natural sources of that. So I would just say, like, we can't do anything about geese. They're protected. But there are, other things we can do to maybe minimize the damage, caused by wildlife.
The person commented that it was the Starlight, the Spangler Pond, but.
Okay, well, I will look into that. Okay, that makes me worried. I'll look into that. I don't know the answer. I don't go over there very much, but I'll talk to the engineer that worked on the upgrade. We finished that, I guess, maybe 2 years ago. So it may be that it needs some maintenance. So I will look into that. If whoever that was wants to email me, I can get you an answer next week.
And then the last is kind of like a comment. I also wonder how we can get the HOAs and the city to realize we need to make it easier to be environmentally friendly.
Yes, I wish I knew the answer to that. I will say that there's one HOA, a smaller neighborhood in the southern part of the city, and they're very interested in promoting native landscapes, native trees, and even like edible, peach tree or other things like that in their neighborhood. They are the exception by far. I don't know. I already said I don't know the answer. I sure wish I did. These management companies have, specific rules, and we just have no control over them. But I mean, if you're in a neighborhood with an HOA and you would like to have me come and present, and frankly, I can come to a school, scout group. I mean, Ashley and I both would be like happy to go anywhere and talk about this stuff. That's, certainly an option to kind of just raise awareness for the residents and the board, for example.
Yeah, and you even touched on it earlier, Tiffany. I mean, going to council meetings and making it obvious what your interests are and what your thoughts are is honestly probably the most productive way. And then also joining those teams, the Environmental Advisory Committee and the Green Team. So I'll send links to each of the teams' web pages. The web pages are pretty simple. So, but just to give you a feel for it, and that way, if you would like to come to a meeting, you can talk to them because, they push policy in the city and they host events and they influence a lot of what goes on. So that would be a really good way to help change some of that. Oh, this person said, great to know. Yeah, well, if there aren't any more questions, I'll give it another minute or so, a couple of seconds, but I think that was a really good discussion. And again, we'll send all of the follow-up information, links to all of these different things that Tiffany touched on, probably a map. Tiffany, if you want, we could send out that sub-watershed map.
Absolutely.
And Tiffany's information will be in the CC, so you can just respond right to her if you have questions. And seriously, what you said, Tiffany, about HOAs and us presenting at them, we're always more than happy to come out and present or talk to your HOA or community group. So feel free to take that route as well.
Please. Yeah, please. And these days we can do webinars. You don't even have to see us if you don't want to. So yeah.
Oh, wait, I see something else popped up. Oh, it was just a thank you. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Well, everyone have a nice rest of your weekend. And thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Tiffany.
Save the bay. Take care.